Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad everyone is here today to learn a little bit more about how ORCID is being used in Canada. So we will have some very interesting presentations about different approaches people are taking regarding ORCID across our country. We have 4 speakers. So first up, we're going to have Toby. Toby will be our first speaker. So Toby Malone is a West Australian, originally from Whadjuk, Nyungar, Bujar, or Perth. I probably pronounced all of that wrong. He's now a settler in Toronto, and he has worked as an actor, a dramaturg, an award-winning educator, a widely published academic, an internationally produced playwright, podcaster, and academic librarian. So I really hope, Toby, that you can come to our coffee talk about measuring impact in the social sciences, humanities, and fine arts. You'll have a lot to say about that. He holds a PhD in Shakespearean textual analysis and dramaturgy from the University of Toronto, MLIS from the University of Western Ontario, and a BA with honors in English from the University of Western Australia. He spent a decade as a tenure-line academic in Canada and the US before shifting careers to become an academic librarian. Toby has previously served as a liaison librarian at Seneca Polytechnic and institutional repository manager at Toronto Metropolitan University. And he is now the permanent research impact librarian and arts liaison librarian at Toronto Metropolitan University. And he gave me all kinds of links, so I'm going to put them in the chat, and then I'm going to pass things over to him.
Okay, thank you, Thane. Apologies for that that too long bio, but yeah, that's me. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the invitation to be here today. And very glad to talk to you about TMU's adoption of the ORCID Affiliation Manager. So just to give you a bit of a sense of where we are, TMU has been a member of the ORCID CA consortium through CAKN for a little while, but we had not activated ORCID Affiliation Manager up until earlier this year. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about our adoption and successes and challenges that we've found over the last 12 months. So when I first took this on and when we first activated, the numbers were pretty grim. We only had about 253 affiliated researchers who had their ORCIDs correctly attached to their names. 464 were active but were unaffiliated with their correct ORCID or weren't affiliated with us, and 500 plus researchers with no ORCID presence at all. So fewer than 25% of our faculty group appeared in ORCID institutional reports. That was a problem, so the ORCID uptake was a big priority for the university, particularly in terms of the university rankings, and so we pushed pretty hard to figure out how we could change this. We had a lot of challenges that we came up against when we first started. First of which is the identity issues. TMU is in a fairly unique situation currently in Canada, in that we completely rebranded about 4 years ago. And so TMU changed its name from Ryerson in 2022 or 2021-22. And so we had a lot of faculty members who had accounts who were connected to Ryerson or connected, and what we've been trying to do is shift over to TMU, and that has been a one at a time kind of process. A lot of faculty had their ORCID profiles connected to Ryerson, even their departments, so we needed to fix that. There are also issues with GRID or Ringgold or ROR. A lot of people had connected to TMU but had Ringgold connections, and so because of that, people weren't showing up in reports, and so we needed to make sure that people were shifting over. There was a really interesting perception of use. People were saying, I don't need an ORCID, I already have a ResearchGate, or I have a academia.edu, or you already made me do the research of the institutional profile. Why do I need to do this one too? A lot of people, so really a lot of pushback on the idea of them being obliged to do it, and that was a bit of a challenge. There was also a lot of faculty who had empty profiles or private profiles, which also weren't showing in reports, and so trying to get those faculty to reset their privacy settings or to populate their accounts was a bit of a challenge. And then the biggest challenge that we came up against is that I am a department of one. And so all of this work that we're doing here is being done by me alone. Not too bad, but it's a challenge. In terms of outreach, the Office of the Vice President of Research and Innovation provided me with a list of all permanent faculty, and so I was able to go in and sort of generate a large spreadsheet with all of our content, and was able to cross-reference those with everyone who was currently active on ORCID, which would mean I could tag people as either being compliant or not present at all. And I did a small pilot with just the group of librarians. We have about 30 librarians here at TMU, so I sort of tried things out on them and realized, what happens when you press a certain button and sends out a generic email, and then confused everyone. And so it was good to sort of pilot those sort of things just to set these kinds of things up. Once I had figured out my strategy, I went one faculty group at a time. And so I started with a smaller group. I started with the School of Law, which again is a smaller group, and then went on until to our biggest group, which is the Faculty of Arts. And over that time, I generated over 40 customized mailing templates, and emailed over 900 faculty members individually. So one at a time through mail merging, a lot of tailored outreach communications. A lot of the emails changed depending on whether they knew me personally or not. We do a lot of follow-ups, and connected with all this. So it took me about between 2 and 4 weeks, I'd say, to cover most of the campus. And the advantage that we have here at TMU is that we have a very small faculty group, about 1,100 faculty. So compared to some of the bigger institutions around Canada, this was fairly manageable for me to handle. Roadshows were also useful at times. So I was able to visit department meetings and encourage people to join up. People would hide their faces when I came in, and they'd say, "Oh no, you're the one that I've been ignoring," and because I would a lot of follow-up emails, a lot of just encouraging people to connect. And then I was also able to connect into new faculty onboarding. So all of the new faculty who joined us this past fall, all of them, I connected with all of them as they started, so they're much more amenable to getting started with a process. There was a lot of obstacles. Time is always the biggest problem with faculty. The busyness factor came in, so messaging too early in the semester meant it was bad time for their teaching. Emailing them in reading week or in the summer meant they were off campus. So trying to negotiate those kinds of things. Generally, faculty were always too busy, and I understood that, but we sort of worked around it. A lot of people have profile burnout. Like I said, I have too many profiles. I don't need another one. And they took a little bit of convincing to suggest that ORCID is a different one and more reliable. A lot of people thought I was a spam bot. A lot of people thought I was phishing. People would email me regularly and say, "Hey, I don't know if you know, but someone's impersonating your email address." Um, but I was able to allay that and generally get people back on board. One big obstacle for a lot of our faculty, I'm saying hundreds of our faculty members have come to me and said, "It says here I need to consent to having my data processed in the US. I don't want that." And that was a major obstacle for Canadian faculty. They don't want to think that their data is going to be processed in the US, particularly when they're working in areas that are relatively sensitive and or illegal in the US right now. A lot of our faculty working in LGBTQ rights don't want their data processed in the US for good reason. And so having to work around that was a bit of a challenge. I did not get access to grad students and postdocs. So that meant that I had to generate an opt-in form for them to opt in, and some did, but not all did. And as I said, a lot of accounts were activated but not populated. So the challenge then was to say, no, now you need to go in and put your stuff in there to get set up. In terms of the results, we had a majority of responding faculty were very positive, and acknowledged ORCID's importance and set that up. Most faculty who ignored the first message would respond to the next one with an apology, and they would set things up. Some declined. Some were rare. They were very rare, often passionate declines, but that was okay. We make it all optional. And we had greater successes in the areas sciences, engineering, Ted Rogers School of Management, primarily because those are areas that understand bibliometrics and their function more than the creative school and arts, which is much more narrative based rather than numbers based. So just to give you a sense, this is how it looked prior to the rollout. This was all unvalidated, a peak of 500 new affiliations a year, which was pretty grim. So after 3 months, our affiliation numbers had grown hugely. So we had more validated in the first 3 months than we had in the entire previous year. And then this is as of today, more than 2,500 affiliations this year, more than 1,500, close to 1,600 validated affiliations, and really good numbers across the board. Our pre-launch statistics are here. I won't go into it in detail, but as you can see, very low numbers across the board, excepting the library. Most librarians were pretty good with doing this, but engineering and sciences were leading the way, but everyone was relatively low. And after nearly 12 months of this, our numbers have exploded. So up by more than 50% in just about every faculty. We have 100% active in the School of Law, and overall 78% or a 51.5% increase over 12 months. In terms of the next steps, I'm still pushing because I'd love to get to 90% uptake across the campus, and really formalizing things in the onboarding processes. I'd love to expand my criteria to incorporate more of our postdocs and our graduate students, and account population is the real goal for 2026, getting everyone populated and up and running. We also have a faculty member in the Faculty of Science who has generated an API designed for scraping ORCID profiles so that the ORCID profiles can be scraped into our faculty profiles and into annual reports. This will be a bit of a game changer because it means that it's an active process for ORCID, and there's a lot of interest in that, and we're hoping to roll that out in the next 12 months. We're also hoping to incorporate our new School of Medicine. We don't have as many, we have a lot of clinical faculty there, so we need to change things up, in terms of how we reach out. And we're getting a lot of faculty level support. A lot of the different schools are starting to assign research assistants to help us with the uptake. So it's all been very positive. This is my email address. I'd love to hear from anyone else who's using Affiliation Manager. I'd hear about you and your successes. A lot of people have reached out so far over the last few months, and it's been really gratifying. And I just love to swap stories. So if you're using Affiliation Manager, please reach out or add me on LinkedIn. I'd love to chat more about this process as we go forward. Okay, thanks.
Wow, that's amazing. The data does not lie there. I think you'll probably have a lot of people getting in touch with you. Anyways, yeah, blown away. I'm glad we started with you. Although I'm sure
Thanks,
all
Tom.
the other stories are equally have some positive data in them as well. So next we have Pierre. Pierre Lazou is the Scholarly Communications Librarian at the University of Laval. He's worked there since 2014, or he's held that position since 2014, and he manages the institutional repository called Corpus UL, and I will put in a link for that in the chat. And he's responsible for the library's journal hosting services, which aims to help scientific journals manage their peer review workflow, always a hard thing to do, so I hope that's going well. And from 2003 to 2013, he was the Electronic Resources Acquisitions Coordinator at Laval. So he has worked there since 2003, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about using ORCID with their DSpace, I think, with the institutional repository. And I'm going to put the link to the repository in the chat, and his ORCID as well. Okay, Pierre, take it away.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, so let me share my screen here. Okay, can you see my screen, my PowerPoint? Okay, great. So yeah, I just described to you how we decided to use the DSpace ORCID module. It's a module that is in DSpace when you're using it. So it allows synchronizations between publications and funding information, basically, between DSpace users and their profile, their ORCID profile. There's requirements to use this plugin. I just talk about some technical details, and then I show you a demo of how the system is working at Laval, and I show you some example in production later also. So the requirement to use this module is to have DSpace 7 or higher. You need to enable some advanced feature like configurable entities. I would just talk about them very quickly in the next slide. And you need to become an ORCID member because it's an integration that needs to have right permissions to the ORCID profile of the users. So the DSpace entities is a model that needs to be understood when you're using the ORCID integration in DSpace. It's basically by default the system has 4 different kind of items: publication, person, organization, and project. And what you can do with this model is just define relation between all those. So let's say a person can be an author of a publication, an organization can be a founder of a publication, etc., etc. So you define those relations between the different kind of items you have in your systems. So in the case of ORCID, you need to have a person that is an author of a publication so that the module is working correctly. Here, what you see is how it works for connections. So the system's out of the box. Basically, you have an ORCID login you can use. It will create your DSpace account based on your ORCID credentials. Then you create what DSpace call a researcher page, which is basically creating a person item type in the system. And then you need to configure the synchronizations. You have a few options, I would say, only fundings, publications, or biography that you can synchronize. And you can basically say, I want to synchronize manually, or I want to schedule automatically the synchronizations. There's another way. ORCID is a way of login, but if you're not using ORCID as a login, we don't at Laval. I will describe you how we work here. You can go with another kind of authentications, but basically the other steps are the same. So you connect the first time with your credentials, being it institutional or shibboleth or other kind of technology you're using. Then you create your page, your researcher profile, and then you synchronize. Same road here. For us, it has been a little bit more complicated because we work differently. Just to say, the module, we started implementing it in September 2025. The faculty at Laval connect to DSpace using their institutional credentials. And we're creating those person item using the library authority file, Canadiana. We charge new Université Laval authors on a daily basis in the system. So we cannot use the standard workflow I just exposed with the ORCID module. We needed to, let's say, have an intermediate steps. I show it here. So we authenticate, our user authenticate with the LDAP authentication to create their account in DSpace, then to connect their account to a specific person page. They need to claim it, and to do this, they need to have the same email address. It's just a technical thing. So we need to do this. It's a library that is doing this for them. They cannot create their own page in the systems. And then the synchronization is the same. So the main difference is this claiming function that people need to do from a person item that we charge from Canadiana to DSpace. Okay, so time for a demo. A quick demo on this. I will first make a demo from the sandbox, the ORCID not the ORCID sandbox, sorry, the DSpace sandbox. I have the wrong link here. We will see how to log into the system using ORCID, how to create this researcher page, and how to access the synchronization page. Sorry. And then I would move to the Université Laval demo site to show you how the synchronization is occurring. Okay, so a two-step demo here. Let me just share my screen here. So when you are on the DSpace sandbox, just to illustrate what I mentioned, you can connect using your ORCID credentials. Here we are on a site website demo, so I just use a fake account, a sandbox account, I would say. So when you sign in, basically you have this authorization access. So the application is negotiating some possibility to update your ORCID profile. You say yes, and you will be shifted back to DSpace. I can confirm there. my account is created as a new user in this space. So the next steps I need to do, I just move fast here, approve the license. Okay. There my account should be created. And if I jump to the profile section, okay, well, I'm stuck with the license. Last try. I think it's okay. Okay, it's okay. So I go to my profile and I create this by creating my researcher profile. Sorry, I'm in French. I create this new page that I can see. So you see my page creating by the information I had in my account, and I can from there just log in to access the authority or the configuration page. There, that's where I said I want it manually or scheduled, and what sections I want to share with ORCID. For this, you can say the publication, say OK, and you can go. So I take the relay here from our own implementation of the ORCID, just to show you how the information is shared. I'm okay with the time, Tang, or?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. So let me just connect here. So from here, I go to my page. Remember that we are at Laval, so I have this system that I cannot access the profile. I need to find my personal page, which is here. There, I can claim my page and say, okay, it's me. Once I've done that, I will have access to the configuration page. And if I do that, I connect with my. So it remembers me here because I have already connected to the sandbox with the same account using the sandbox account in this space. I access my page here. I can say I want to synchronize all publications. And if I go there, you will see appearing two publications where my name as Annebert was linked as an author. So once you're there, you have a choice to say, okay, I don't want to synchronize it, or I want to synchronize it. I do this for the two record here, and you see my queue is finished. If I go to my sandbox account, you will see that the two records were sent. So basically, the module is quite efficient in sharing the information. It's immediate. So you see here, you have the information that has been sent. We were able to customize the metadata here. I just go back to all this cross reference because that's where they are challenged. But just to show you, we have someone from Laval here that has connected. So once you're connected, you have the ORCID ID that is there. You can go to the page, to the researcher page, and this researcher at Laval has already synchronized all his publications. So if I scroll down, you'll see that the majority of it comes from this space. It's an exception in our institutional repositories. It's one researcher that is submitting every publication he made. he has made. So it's very efficient in this way. So by connecting this, he update its profile. And one thing in our context that is useful is that when doing so, when populating its ORCID profile, it's also populating the systems at Laval and allow to show the last publication from his profile in the database where you can search for Laval faculty. So just let me go back to for a few challenges to conclude. So this ends the demo here. Of course, there's still work to do. DSpace is an open source software, so there's a lot of things that are documented that needs to be improved. I just shared a bit. You have the link in the presentation. There's some tickets here asking to improve things at different level. For example, to better manage the list of publications, using maybe something different from a list queue to have more of a dashboard, etc., etc. But also, commonly, there's a lot of things that need to be updated. First, there's this integration in DSpace from ORCID is still a legacy integration from the eyes of ORCID. So you need to DSpace would need to recertify the integration. I think it's planned for version 11 or maybe later. Another thing that ORCID is not the ORCID ID, when you do the connection, like I showed you a few minutes ago, there's no the ORCID is not circulating. Let's say if you register from DSpace a new DOI, when you register the publication, the ORCID ID of the person is not sent. So same thing for OAI PMH. When you see a publication, let's say you're sending things to OpenAir, which has a guideline that allows for indication of affiliation or ORCID IDs, it's not exposed as part of the OAI PMH protocol. So the circulation, you have technically the possibility to make these links, but it's not yet interoperable in the sense that it will not circulate in context external to the application. Another limit is you cannot send supervisions of thesis and dissertation. When you send a thesis of a dissertation, it's sent at the author. But if someone has supervised the work, it cannot send it to the system. But one limit we also saw is when you make this crosswalk, when you send publications, you can only choose one metadata to represent the hierarchies between the type of items. So if you have an event of a congress, a journal article, or a chapter of a book, you need to use one. You can only declare one metadata to expose this hierarchy. So by default, DC relation is part of. So if you're not using this metadata specifically, you can change it for another one. But if you are in our case, we're using 3 different metadata, let's say DC event for Congress, bibliographic citation for articles, and DC relation is part of for books. You need to choose when you're synchronizing or sending information to ORCID. So this should be improved in my sense to have more granularity and more configuration options as part of the module. And of course, locally, we need to do outreach. As I mentioned, we are live since September 2025, and we need to see how to communicate to our community the fact that they can connect our repositories with their DSpace profile. And let's not say that it's magic, because you do this connection, then your ORCID profile will be automatically populated, etc., etc. It's 2 systems. The repositories is our open access system, so it's not meant to be exhaustive and to have all the publication of our researchers, only some part of it. So yeah, for this we are still brainstorming on how to communicate with our faculty to have this connection occur. So far, we have I would say maybe between 5 and 10 faculty that have made the connection. without any promotion, I would say. And this is it.
Merci. Thank you very much, Pierre. Very interesting. And I think your presentation, we clearly see the value of integrations and the possibility to save time for research authors. So thank you very much. And I'm sure you'll get questions from people. I'm definitely sending your slides and this recording to some people who I work with, who work on our repository system. Next up, we have Nicholas Lamar, and he is the Canadian Persistent Identifier Community Officer at the Canadian Research Knowledge Network, or CRKN. He supports the ORCID CA and DataCite Canada consortia by promoting PID adoption, developing community resources, and improving metadata practices to enhance the discoverability of scholarly and cultural heritage resources. And I'm going to put his ORCID ID in the chat. It's fun to be able to do this for each of the speakers. And Nicholas, take it away.
Thanks. I hope everyone could see my screen there. Thank you for having me today. This is really excited. I'm really excited to talk about the ORCID data visualization tool, which is giving us really new opportunities to showcase researcher activities, and especially how persistent identifiers can facilitate all of that in a digital landscape. That's me. You don't need that. Okay. So we've been working on the data visualization tool for ORCID for a few years now. Maybe like closer to 18 months and growing. And it's been possible because there's been a critical mass of folks who are involved with PIDs and have adopted PIDs. And as we're heading into the more or deeper implementation phase of the national PID strategy, and we have we're getting over 55 ORCID CA members who find these metrics valuable. We now get to do really interesting stuff like developing a visualization tool and a dashboard. So the DataVis tool was originally developed through a funded student project at Lyrasis back in 2022. It's an open source R code that is available on their GitHub and our GitHub as well at CRKN. And then there's a visualization layer that's done on top of that. In the US, they do it through Tableau Public, and they do it also through Power BI. But we do that through a package called Shiny, which I'll be talking about a bit later. So that what the tool does is that it's analyzing and visualizing publications collaboration activity between researchers. So it's running on an institutional basis. It can be configured to run for one given institution at a time. So for example, in the demo linked on the slides for the US, they did it for the University of South Carolina. Our demo that we have in this slide deck is for UNB, so University of New Brunswick, but it can be run for anyone that has a ROR ID, basically. And it provides an overview of the number of ORCIDs at a given institution, the number of collaborative articles that were written at that institution, and then the number of institutions and cities in which these collaborations have taken place. And then it puts that nicely on a map of collaboration activity. So last year, we at CRKN decided to kind of work on this tool to figure out how we could expand it. We had an intern called Isabella Souza. She was a co-op student from the University of Waterloo, and she took on this project and she did such amazing work. So most of the things I'll be talking about today is her incredible work. So we identified three main aspects to extend this tool. So we wanted to integrate DataCite DOIs, as it was only querying Crossref. So as a DataCite Canada consortium lead, that would be beneficial to us. We wanted to move to Shiny for the visualization layer, as I mentioned earlier, and we wanted to move to geonames to get the longitude and latitude coordinates associated with the institutions that we were gathering information from. And on the bottom right here is for the slides, it's the link to our GitHub repo for this visualization tool. So this is a bit of an overview of what the script does. It seems complex, but it's very straightforward. So the tool is really built on the concept that PIDs are interoperable, they are machine readable, and that is their strength. Their strength is that they connect together so they can point to each other. So it's all about the interlinkage of ORCID IDs and DOIs and ROR IDs as well. So initially, the script will get the ORCID IDs from your institution through the RORs. It'll filter for current employee by date, and then it'll get their works data that are affiliated with their ORCID records. so they're DOIs. So previously the script, like I said, only retrieved DOIs from Crossref, but now we were able to add the DataCite query, so we have access to just additional content types and research outputs, not just publications like research articles and books and stuff like that. So now our data set is really much more comprehensive and diverse. So the script sort of creates a list of DOIs that were not found in Crossref and then queries DataCite to retrieve that missing metadata. And then all of that metadata is merged back together. So to get the co-author's information through the linked ORCID through the DOIs and then gets the ROR to get the location data for those collaborations. We also moved to Shiny for the visualization layer. So Shiny is an open source R package that provides just extensive customization options for building data visualization dashboards. And Tableau is not an open source tool, so it's a tool provided by Salesforce. And while it's free to use in the public forum, it just has really limited customization features, and it is kind of branded fairly heavily. And so you'd need to pay to get rid of the logos, and we don't want that, especially if we want to set that up for our members. But the key kind of advantage of Shiny is that it enables a live update of the dashboard. So there's an automatic code execution when the source file is modified. So you don't have to set up the dashboard all over again, unlike what you'd have to do in Tableau. So it just overall just really simplifies data grouping, filtering, and cleaning functions whenever you pull different types of data sets based on different date ranges, for example. Additionally, Shiny, and I think maybe more crucially, and as Toby was mentioning a bit earlier too, Shiny enhances data privacy and security. So it's not relying on external platforms like Salesforce. So it really ensures your data is not stored with or sold by third-party companies. The third modification we made to the script was to move to geonames, which is something we had to do to attain the coordinates because Tableau used to generate them for us, but not as accurately. So geonames is a continually updated open source database that includes very detailed information on countries and regions, but also localities. So it's really enhancing the precision of the geographic data we need in Canada. And we were also able to update the GeoName script to really better support Canadian provinces, eliminate certain duplicates, and just ensure we have cleaner institution location data, basically. And in the long term, there's also the possibility of adding custom names and location as well, which could be beneficial. So this was a video at first, but because of lack of time, I've provided kind of screenshots of what the dashboard looks like. So we have three main features on the dashboard. So the summary, basically, where you get the date range for the data that you pulled, the number of articles that are collaborations, number of collaboration cities, and the number of ORCID IDs that are affiliated with those collaborations. You get a top 5 highest collaborated with institution, which you can customize as much as you want. The second feature, and that's kind of the big one, is the collaborations map to kind of showcase global or international collaboration activity in different. It kind of puts different hotspots on the most collaborated with institution. You can also visualize collaboration within your institution and then with broader institutions as well. And then it'll list the institutions with the number of collaborations affiliated with them. And you can also search for individual either locations or institutions as well if you're looking for um, a specific set of data. The last feature that we have on that dashboard is an individual ORCID search. So if you know the researcher you want to showcase, or if you want to look for your own collaboration activity, you can input an ORCID ID and it'll list the institutions they've collaborated with, the number of collaborations they've done, and then it'll list the articles that have been collaborated on. One enhancement we want to bring on there is that we'd really like to add the DOIs hyperlink so you could get access to the articles directly from the dashboard without having to, just enabling more interoperability and linkage on there would be very beneficial. So we've done a couple of projects to really improve the tool's functionalities, to really try to establish its value for our member institution. One of those projects that we recently completed as of this week or last week was a Seawall project with Mount Allison University. So we at CRKN we supported their Seawall funded project. So Seawall is the Cooperative Education and Work Integrated Learning Canada, and it funds and supports innovative work integrating learning projects that give students hands-on real-world experiences. So we worked with 35 undergraduate students across 2 courses led by Mount A librarians, and we CRKN staff provided ongoing assistance through both virtual and in-person presentations. So I went to Sackville for a few days back in October, where I held office hours and brainstorming sessions with different stakeholders there. The overall project really ran into 2 main streams. So we had a technical stream with the data science students and a non-technical stream with the scholarly communication students. The technical students, if you can see on the bottom right, they maintain a GitHub bug tracker and propose improvement to the ORCID data visualization tool script, including we needed to complete the Shiny migration for the map and the ORCID search. We needed to resolve some naming inconsistencies with the roars, reconciling different API behaviors and metadata, and just kind of an overall enhancement of the functionalities of the tool. So anything that it could bring to us is valuable. And the non-technical students were asked to build a case for Mount A to join potentially ORCID CA as they're not currently members. So we kind of asked them to evaluate their existing PIDs data with the visualization tool, and then comparing with similar sized universities, how they could integrate additional ORCID member portal data, as you can see on the bottom left, and which some of you might be very familiar with, sort of integrating that member data into their own institutional reporting and tracking workflows. So we do have a set of kind of concrete next steps as we need to address these bugs and enhancements that were flagged for us to improve the code environment and hopefully the reproducibility for different institutions. So we definitely need to set up test instances for interested members of ORCID CA to review, to provide a deeper review and just provide feedback overall of the interest and value of this and usability. And then we need to communicate these most recent developments and contributions more widely within both with our American colleagues that also maintain this visualization tool, but also with our Canadian communities. So I presented a version of this slide deck at BRIC this summer. I'm here presenting at Carl today, and hopefully next year we'll get to present on the Seawall project and the outcomes and the deliverables next year. So we're really at a point where we need to open up this conversation with our broader PIDs committees, communities, our stakeholders, but most importantly with our members, because this is their data of their researchers in their own institutions. So in order for us to make data-driven decisions for the national PID strategy on a higher level at CRKN and with the CPDAC, the advisory committee, we also need to ask, what is the greater value of these kinds of visualization tools for the entirety of the Canadian research community? What do the people actually want to know about these PIDs and their connections? How can they track them more efficiently at their institutions? How can having a better sense of the PIDs metrics through visualizations and dashboards can inform then in return the implementation of the PID strategy? And I think kind of overall and to kind of finish this off, most importantly, how can we use these metrics and visuals to efficiently benchmark the success of the national PID strategy in Canada, and how can we compare that on how we're doing on a global scale with other countries implementing their own PID strategies? So yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Thank you very much. Another inspiring presentation. I love learning from the rest of you. I get so many ideas in my head. Okay, so our last presenter is Jack Young, and he is McMaster's Research Impact and Bibliometrics Librarian, supporting the use of bibliometric data to enhance the reporting and strategic planning practices of the university, its researchers, and research units. Jack provides training and consultations on the tools and techniques available at McMaster for tracking the impact of research and knowledge mobilization activities. And I'll just note that Jack will probably take us straight to the hour, so we're not going to have time for questions, but please follow up with anyone via email if you do have questions. And Jack, feel comfortable going a minute or two or even 5 minutes over, and we understand if people have to leave at the hour. All right, take it away.
Thank you so much, Thane. I'll try to get through this before the top of the hour here. So I'm going to talk about ORCID integration with McMaster's researcher profiles, so the McMaster branded researcher profiles at our university, in an attempt to both increase uptake of ORCID and to enhance some of our research impact reporting processes as well. So, like many of the other presenters have noted, we want to see growth in our ORCID uptake at McMaster. And while we've seen some progress through our training, our workshops, our consultations, we're still a far ways away from universal adoption. And some of the common challenges we hear around ORCID uptake kind of fall in these two buckets that are related. The first being this perception that there's too much work, right? It's administratively burdensome. Going through the process of populating new profiles with past works, especially if a researcher has had a prolific career before they created their ORCID. There's this issue with consistently supplying ORCID when publishing. Obviously, in a perfect world, providing the ORCID right at the point of publication means that there's very little upkeep that needs to happen from the researcher's side as far as getting content into their profiles. But in reality, we know that every publisher has its own unique system for collecting ORCIDs, and oftentimes the onus is going to fall on the corresponding author to be doing a lot of the late work to make sure that these ORCIDs are represented. So we know that a lot of our researchers have ORCIDs that don't end up on their publications. And then there's an issue around duplication of effort, and I think specifically around entering metadata for research objects that might not have DOIs, right? Where you actually have to manually enter into the works form to get it into ORCID. And while ORCID is well set up to accept a variety of different works, and I think it's really well suited to capturing the full diversity of research outputs, there is this potential issue of them just being these sort of inert pieces on records on an ORCID profile. And if somebody then needs to go and put this in a different space, it's kind of hard to port those out and to track and to sort of connect those non-traditional outputs external to their ORCID profiles. And then I think related to this is that if we're going to put in this work, there's not currently enough positive incentives for us to be doing this work, right? There's institutional, there's journal, there's funder requirements that may, say you need to do this in order to be able to apply for this funding, or the institution say we need you to do this in order to get X. But these are acting more like sticks than carrots. And so while they might get somebody to get an ORCID profile, they're probably not going to inspire them to be super on top of upkeeping it, right? It's just sort of a box they have to check in order to access something. So with that in mind, I want to talk a little bit about the integration into our McMaster Experts Researcher Profile System and how we've connected ORCID there in a way to hopefully address some of those challenges. So McMaster Experts is a research information management system, a RIMS, built using the Symplectic Elements platform from Digital Science. So all research conducting faculty at McMaster will have a public experts profile, showcases things like their affiliations, their teaching activities, and I think most importantly for this talk, their scholarly works. So this is the public facing front of experts. You can search for any researcher or department here. And every researcher or every faculty member will have a researcher profile like this one here. So contains a lot of different information. We're going to focus largely on the scholarly works today. So, on its own and at face value, it might look an awful lot like an ORCID profile, and you might think that, okay, well, some of those same challenges might apply, if they have to maintain this one on top of an ORCID profile and other potential profiles that they have to manage as well. And so I wanted to spend some time talking about how exactly McMaster Experts gets populated. So what happens is Symplectic Elements, the tool that Experts is built on, goes out and it searches the algorithmically generated author profiles of core scholarly databases. So these algorithmically generated profiles, what they essentially are is, if I publish a paper as Jack Young, tool like Web of Science, Scopus, Dimensions Analytics, they try to group that publication with all of my other publications and differentiate it from all the other Jack Youngs in the world. So the way they do this, obviously, they look at the name of the author, they look at the affiliation I've provided, they look at the research area I'm working within, and perhaps the publication date as well, to try to group together all of my publications and differentiate them from the other Jack Youngs in the world. These aren't perfect systems, but they're getting better all the time as machine learning improves. And what we're finding is that except for those instances where it's people with very common names, thinking the John Smiths of the world, they're getting very good at gathering together the articles that we hope to be gathering. So right out the box, what they do is they send these returned works that they found to the experts queue for each researcher at McMaster for acceptance or rejection. So they basically got this curated list and they say, we think these are yours. And they've simultaneously searched these 3 databases and more and pulled them all together for either the researcher or a delegate, somebody they've assigned as a delegate to go through and accept and reject. So, that's the easy, or at its most basic, that's what experts is doing, is pulling back these publications for acceptance and rejection. But this process can be further streamlined if we set up automatic claiming. And so what that looks like is now we're looking at the back end of the expert system. I'm signed in as myself. And these are the identifiers in the 3 databases I mentioned, Dimensions, Web of Science, and Scopus, that are associated with my work. And what I've basically done is, after vetting these identifiers and looking at the profiles that were created within those systems algorithmically, I've said, these are doing a good job at grabbing what I'm trying to grab. So at identifying my work. So anytime something new gets added to there, just push it into my experts profile. And so essentially we've cut out even the process of having to go through, in this case, going through and checking my queue to see if new articles have appeared. I've just said, I trust these, I'll come in on a semi-regular basis to make sure nothing erroneously has been picked up, but by and large, they're doing a good job. You'll see here I've also linked it to my ORCID profile, which means that if that ORCID number is showing it up in a publication, or if there's any publications in my ORCID profile that aren't my experts, it'll send those into my experts profile. Now, where the power kind of gets even stronger here is when we synchronize ORCID with experts and allow for bidirectional read-write agreement between experts profile and ORCID, which basically means anything that's in my experts profile now can get sent over to my ORCID and vice versa. So if we think of the process from the very beginning, it becomes very hands-off, in that once we've set all of the automatic claiming responsibilities, anytime I publish something new, gets captured in one of those algorithmically generated profiles in any of those core databases, it'll automatically get added to my experts, which will then automatically push it over to my ORCID. And then the other thing I want to note too is that we're focusing on capturing those non-traditional outputs, the piece around trying to reduce the duplication of effort and not having to enter things that don't have DOIs in multiple places. So the expert system is also integrated with our institutional repository, which is built on DSpace. And in our newest, or our current upgrade that we're working on, is going to enable the minting of DataCite DOIs for deposited works within our institutional repository. So this will be like assigning identifiers to things like reports, presentations, artworks. And what that means is now we can have this single record of truth in our institutional repository for these non-traditional outputs, and then push that out to experts in ORCID automatically, so we're not duplicating the effort in multiple places. So if we just quickly revisit those common challenges around too much work, this is what we think the experts integration really helps with, right? So populating new profiles with past works becomes easier because we're getting this curated list pulled for us. And if we look through that list and say, yeah, it's grabbing pretty much everything I want, we can automate that process and bring everything into experts and then to ORCID. Similarly, I think consistently supplying your ORCID when publishing is going to be the best way to make sure that your stuff gets in the ORCID. But we have the safety net now that if for whatever reason your ORCID didn't get on your publication and does get picked up by the algorithmic profiles in these databases, it will still end up in ORCID eventually. And around the duplication of effort, that's the piece around the institutional repository, minting DOIs, and becoming this sort of record of truth that can be shared with both experts and ORCID simultaneously. In the final couple minutes, I just want to talk briefly about these positive incentives that we're trying to implement as well. So another part of my work is around research impact services, helping researchers and teams and departments express the impact of their research. And so what we've done as a way to sort of to sort of shift from the carrot to the stick model is to basically say, if you have your experts profile and your ORCID profiles up to date, that's going to enable us to support the types of research impact services that we can provide through the library. And so just very, very quickly, we've basically standardized some visualizations and automated some visualizations that we can generate based on the identifiers present in a expert's profile. So something as simple as a publication and citation overview over time, but also things like network visualizations. So here's a collaboration network at the organization level, a collaboration network at the co-author level. We can use our Altmetric subscription to tap into media reporting on the publications listed in your experts and ORCID profiles. Non-academic citations, so things like policy and clinical guidance, but also YouTube videos and Wikipedia articles, as well as this is tapping into our Overton policy and clinical guidance database subscription. These are policy and clinical guidance citations from around the world to the papers that your names are on. So in this way, we're trying to basically use this as an incentive to fill up your experts profile, to link it to your ORCID account, to make sure you're capturing the full breadth of your research so that we can better help you express the impact of that research at the end of the day. So thank you. Sorry, 2 minutes over, but please, I invite any questions you might have. Please feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to chat. Thanks so much.